So is buying a home in Atlanta in 2026 actually worth it? Or are we all just out here pretending like they aren't making these mortgage payments look like a combination of someone put a car note, brunch, and daycare all together and called it a house? Let's be honest, buying a home in Atlanta in 2026, it's not cheap. Rates are not going to get back to 3%, and house prices are not giving clearance rack at Target. So depending on where you're looking, you may still be competing with other buyers, investors, relocation buyers, and people who are walking around with cash like they just walked out of a game of Monopoly. So here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud. The answer is not simply yes or no. The real answer is it depends on your timeline, on your numbers, the neighborhood you want to be in, and whether you're buying strategically or emotionally. So in this video, I'm breaking down whether buying a home in Atlanta in 2026 is worth it, who should move forward, who should probably pump the brakes, and how to avoid buying the wrong house because you're tired of renting. Because tired, it's not a strategy, friend. Hey, I'm Krista Core Powell, a local Atlanta realtor with eXp Realty, and on this channel, Atlanta Real Estate Insider, I help sellers, buyers, and relocators make smarter real estate decisions in Metro Atlanta. I'm especially focused on helping people understand what the listings do not tell you, because the listing will say charming bungalow, but it may not say the roof is at the end of its life, the crawl space is giving a haunted basement vibe, and your community is about to humble you. So today we're talking about whether buying Atlanta is still worth it in 2026. And I'm going to give you the real answer, not the fluffy, now is always a good time to buy answer. So first, let's talk about what's happening in the market. Nationally, affordability is still a major challenge. And as of mid-May 2026, the average 30-year mortgage rate is still somewhere around the mid 6% range. And that's still enough to make monthly payments feel heavy for a lot of people. And yes, rates are lower than some of the peaks we saw in the last few years, but we are not back in 2020, 2021 era. And we aren't going to be because that took a pandemic, so we're not asking for that. That was people waiving inspections, naming their firstborn after the seller, and offering $80,000 over asking for a house with one bathroom and a interesting smell. We are not doing that in 2026. At least we're not doing that with my blessing. So if I'm your realtor, we're definitely not doing that. Now, locally, Atlanta is more balanced than it was during that frenzy, and that's fantastic. Zillow's recently reported that Atlanta's average home value was around $387,000 as of April 30th, 2026, which is down about 3.6% over the previous year, with homes going pending in about 45 days. So what does that mean in plain non-realtor English? What that means is buyers have more breathing room than they had a couple years ago. So that's good news. You have more time to think. You have more room to negotiate. You have the ability to get some seller concessions, price reductions, and homes are also sitting on the market longer than sellers are expecting. So do not confuse more balanced with everything is cheap now. These are two different things because Atlanta is still Atlanta. People are still moving here. Jobs are still here. The airport is still a beast. The film industry, healthcare, logistics, tech, colleges, and corporate relocations are all still part of this picture. In the neighborhoods people really want, especially near the Beltline, strong school zones, walkable areas, and easy airport access, good homes will move quickly. So, is buying worth it? Here's my honest answer. Buying a home in Atlanta in 2026 is worth it if you're buying for the right reasons and you can comfortably afford the payment. Not barely afford it, not I'll stop eating out forever afford it, not I hope my car never needs tires afford it, comfortably afford it. Because homeownership is not just a mortgage, it's taxes, insurance, maintenance, HOA fees, maybe, the random plumbing issue that appears on a Tuesday when you're already just minding your business. So before you ask, is the market good? I want you to ask, is this payment good for my life? That's the grown-up question, the fun question, but definitely the one that keeps you from crying in the Home Depot parking lot. Buying in Atlanta makes sense in 2026 if you plan to stay there for at least 3 to 5 years. Why? Because buying has upfront costs. We're talking about closing costs, moving expenses, inspection fees, appraisal fees, repairs, furniture. Remember that couch you've been looking at? The one that somehow, that one run to Walmart that has now become $643? If you're only planning on staying for 1 year, buying may not be the best move unless you have a very clear investment strategy. So if you're going to house hack or something like that, then maybe it might make sense. But if you know you want roots in Atlanta, if you want stability, if you're tired of rent increases, if your income and lifestyle can support the payment, then yes, buying can absolutely make sense, especially if you're looking in areas with long-term growth potential. And I'm not just talking about the trendy zip codes that everybody on TikTok keeps hyping up. Sometimes the smartest purchase is not the flashiest neighborhood. Sometimes it's the neighborhood next to the neighborhood, where you may still find value. That's where you may get more space. That's where the future appreciation may be stronger if infrastructure, jobs, and development are moving in that direction. Now, let's talk about where buyers need to be careful. Number one, do not buy based only on the monthly mortgage payment shown online. Those calculators, they lie by omission. What they're not telling you about is, besides the principal and the interest, taxes, there's possibly an HOA, there's mortgage insurance, and in reality, in Georgia, those taxes can vary a lot by city and by county. So you can live in DeKalb, which is considered Atlanta, and Cobb, which is considered Atlanta, and in Fulton, which is considered Atlanta, in a $400,000 house, and your monthly payment will vary dramatically. Insurance has also become more expensive in areas, so the payment you see online may not be the payment that you actually get. Number two, please I've made videos about this. Do not skip the inspection. I don't care how cute the kitchen is. I do not care if the seller left a little coffee bar stage with lemon and eucalyptus. Get the inspection. Atlanta has a lot of older homes, and older homes can be wonderful, but they can also come with old plumbing, old electrical, foundation movement, drainage issues, and problems with the roof and HVAC. Sometimes those systems are just tired, boss. And number three, do not fall in love with a house before you understand the neighborhood. Atlanta is hyper local. One street can feel totally different from the next. The commute will definitely matter because this Atlanta traffic will break your heart. Schools for sure matter. Resale matters. Future development matters. Flood zones, traffic patterns, and airport noise matter too, depending on where you're looking. And this is why I always say you're not just buying a house, you're buying a lifestyle, a payment, a commute, a resale story. That's a whole package. So now, some people listen, I get the logic. Your girl loves a discount. However, that's not really a strategy. Waiting is not automatically a strategy. According to Fannie Mae's 2026 housing forecast, continue to track mortgage rate expectations and broader housing trends, but forecasts can change quickly based on inflation, employment, and economic conditions. So if rates drop, what do you think happens? More buyers come back onto the market. That means more competition. And if more buyers come back while inventory is still limited in the most desirable areas, prices could just get higher again. And so, yeah, you may get a lower rate later, but you also may face more competition later. That doesn't mean you should rush either. It just means you should run the numbers. There is a difference. If the right home comes up and the payment works and inspection checks out and the neighborhood makes sense, waiting just because you're trying to perfectly time the market may not help you, because ain't nobody ever beat the market. I teach buyers and sellers is this: you cannot perfectly time the market. The smarter move is to focus on your actual goals, your numbers, and the strategy that fits your life. Now, I want to talk to my first-time buyers. If you're buying your first home in Atlanta in 2026, you need 3 things to think about before you start touring a house. Don't even Zillow until you do these 3 things. First, you need a real pre-approval, not a vibes-based pre-qualification. A real pre-approval where a lender has reviewed your income, your credit, your debt, and your assets. Second, you need to understand your true comfort payment, not just what the bank says you can afford, because the bank may approve you for a payment that has you eating for dinner. We're not doing that. Third, you need to know what trade-offs you're willing to make, because $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 in Metro Atlanta, the options look very different depending on the location. You may be choosing between space and commute, newer finishes and older systems, walkability and square footage, city energy versus suburban calm. There's no perfect house. It's not a thing. The only house is the one that fits your life the best, your money, and your next chapter. Now, if you're relocating to Atlanta, this part's for you. Please do not pick the neighborhood based on a cute Instagram reel. Atlanta's not one thing. Living in Midtown is different from living in Decatur, where it's greater. Living in Smyrna is different from living in East Point. Living in Peachtree City is very different from living in the West End. Living in South Fulton is different from living in Sandy Springs. And your daily life can change drastically based on where you work, whether you need the airport, whether you want walkability, and how much driving you can tolerate before your spirit actually leaves your body. If you're moving here from New York, California, Chicago, DC, wherever, you need to understand how Atlanta functions, because the map says 14 miles, but Atlanta traffic will say pack a snack. So yes, buying can be worth it for relocators, but you need a local strategy before you start clicking hearts on Zillow like it's a dating app. Now for my move-up buyers, this is where 2026 could actually be interesting. You already own a home in Atlanta and you have equity, you can have options. You may be able to sell first, then buy. You may be able to buy first, then sell. You may be able to use a bridge loan, HELOC, contingent offer, or leaseback strategy, depending on your financial situation and the home you currently own. These are the same move-up strategies I use when helping sellers time their next purchase without unnecessary chaos. And some programs are designed specifically to help homeowners use equity before selling. For example, one buy before you sell option will allow eligible sellers to access equity, make a more competitive offer before their current home sells, subject to program rules and approval. There's always a little bit of fine print there. Now, is that right for everybody? No, absolutely not. But that's why you do not need random advice from Facebook. You need a plan. Because the question is not just, can I buy? The question is, what order should I do this in so I do not end up stressed, rushed, or carrying two payments longer than I planned? This is where strategy matters. Y'all gonna get sick of me saying strategy on this channel. So, big question. Who should not buy right now? Now, I'm gonna be real honest. Not everybody should buy in 2026. You may wanna wait if your job situation is unstable. You may wanna wait if you have no emergency fund. You may wanna wait if your credit needs work and a few months of cleanup and could save you a lot of money. You may wanna wait if the only way to buy is to drain every dollar you have. You may wanna wait if you're not sure you even wanna stay in Atlanta. Buying a home is powerful, but buying too soon, buying the wrong home, or just buying with no cushion can turn a blessing into a burden real quick. And I care more about you buying well than just buying fast. So what should buyers do in 2026? Here's what I would do if I were buying in Atlanta in 2026. First, I would get fully pre-approved before looking seriously. Second, I would pick a monthly payment that still allows me to live my life. Third, I would compare neighborhoods based on my lifestyle, on commute, resale, and future growth. Fourth, I would look for homes that have been sitting a little bit longer, because that's usually where the negotiation opportunities are hiding. Number 5, I would ask about seller-paid closing costs or rate buydowns whenever possible. And 6th, I would not chase a house just because I'm afraid of missing out. FOMO is real expensive. Strategy is cheaper. So, final answer. Is buying a home in Atlanta worth it in 2026? For the right buyer, yes. If you have a stable income, a clear budget, a smart neighborhood strategy, and plan to stay long enough for the numbers to make sense, buying can still be a strong move. But if the payment stretches you too thin, if you're guessing on the neighborhood, or if you're buying just because everybody keeps saying rent is throwing money away, pause. Renting is not failure. Buying is not automatically success. The goal is not just to own a home. The goal is to own the right home at the right payment in the right location with a plan that actually fits your life. And this is how you make buying in Atlanta worth it. So if you're thinking about buying in Atlanta this year and you want to know what your budget really gets you, I created a free Atlanta home buyer blueprint. It breaks down the buying process, local tips, neighborhoods to watch, and what to think about before you start touring homes. You can grab it using the link below. And if you want help building a real plan, not just scrolling listings at midnight and stressing yourself out, book a free buyer strategy call with me. I'm Krista Corpowell with eXp Realty and your Atlanta real estate insider. And before you buy in Atlanta, make sure you know what the listing is not telling you.